sight of your holiness. Majestic is your purity. Your righteousness shines brighter than the sun on me, on me. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord our God. Glory, glory, glory to his matchless name. Worthy, worthy, worthy is the Lamb that was slain, that was slain, that was slain. Awesome is the sight of your holiness. Majestic is your purity. Your righteousness shines brighter than the sun on me, on me. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord our God. Glory, glory, glory to his matchless name. Worthy, worthy, worthy is the Lamb that was slain, that was slain, that was slain. Give him praise this morning, church.
Hallelujah. Amen. Let me see. Eric, why don't you open us up this morning? Amen. You can be seated. People, no doubt, are a little sore this morning. I'm a little sore from watching. Amen. And so this year, I played it safe at the picnic. So we're doing parenting skills. This is still part 3, okay? And I wasn't able to finish it last week, so I want to finish this week. We don't have any scriptures. We used them last week, okay? But our main text for this part is Proverbs 29:17. We're talking about removing consequences, right? Throwing up the white flag. What happens when you quit on your children or on consequences? Proverbs 29:17. Correct your son, and he will give you rest. Yes, he will give you delight to your soul. You know, he's talking about investing in them today so that tomorrow, right, they are a blessing to your soul. So very, very important to understand that. We talked about last week what parents fail to realize is that consequences are great teachers, right? The lessons touch you profoundly and they stay with you for life. We also talked about how consequences are the invisible lines that keep our children inside the boundaries of normal, right? And speaking more really when they become adults. But they grow up to be normal kids, right? Normal meaning they're a blessing to society, not a vex. They grow up to be sane. They're more stable in their minds. Because this has been proven, many books that I've wrote, they teach us to rule over our emotions, right? Which will keep us out of trouble, amen, if this is in place when you're an adult. And so we talked about when kids are not taught consequences, they become destructive. We saw how they become sore losers as adults. We talked about family and different things that we've seen, grown adults, right, that destroy things, throw things, even say all kinds of crazy, hurtful things. And so what we said was that eventually they get older but never grow up. And how many know that that identifies a big portion of this generation today. And so we also talked about why do parents, or why do we remove consequences, is what we talked about, right? We said we don't want them to experience pain. Some of us were disciplined wrong, abused. As a result, we think we're protecting our children, or we're not going to abuse them. And the answer is never to go from one extreme to the other. You have to always try to find a balance, right? And so that's that's very crucial. Turn this. Stinking devil. Okay, all right, and so that's never the answer, right? I talked about how my mom used to beat me, and you want to hear a crazy story? If I could, I share oftentimes in my testimony when I do Twice Did how my mom used to lock me in the closet. By the way, we're gonna have a Twice Did Sunday at the end of May, and so. But anyways, I talk about how my mom would beat me and lock me in a closet, spit in my face, all these kinds of things. And one time she left me in there for almost 4 days, right? She met a guy, she took off, left me in the closet. I figured out how to get out of the closet, but I couldn't get out of the house. And so there was this lady. She knew that my mom would lock me in the closet, leave me there alone. She would always bring me food, right? And so she would knock at the door, and I couldn't answer the door because I'd get the beating of my life if my mom found out. But she would knock on the door and leave the food there and then take off. And so years pass. I'm working on this guy. I've shared the story of where I'm working on this guy, Ray Perez. I go and fix his water heater for free. I just said, you just need to come to church. He ended up sticking it out. He's still in the church till today. But I was sharing my testimony. I was doing a revival there in my mother church, and Ray invited his mother to come and hear my testimony. And I'm sharing the part about this lady that used to bring me food, and she comes running up to me afterwards. She's like, mijo, I was that lady. She says, I'm the one that would give you the food. I tried adopting you. I tried taking you away from your mother, and the state wouldn't let me. Man, I freaked out. Anyways, I don't know why I shared that story. Why did I share that? Oh, my mom beating me and stuff like that. So isn't that crazy how God, he called me the other day. His daughter is now going to the College Station church and going to College Station, and he wanted some advice on how to go about his daughter liking somebody else. And so anyways, it's just so crazy. We hung up the phone, and then we hung up, and I was like, oh, his mom. And I called him back the next day. We were talking about it. But anyways, the idea, right, is not to go from one extreme to the other. I was abused, but I made sure that my home was going to understand consequences, right? Consequences and consistency, very, very important. Okay, so, then we said laziness was another thing. One of the big parts I feel that parents are a little more lazy or loose today is because of how busy we are today. And so it's just kind of hard to, keep up with kids. And the problem is that kids know this. They know you're tired. They know, and so they even try to wear you out a little so that you can throw in the white flag and just say, you know what, I don't have time for this. Just go ahead. They will. They're smart. They will wear you out. And so each time you raise the white flag, the problem with that is that you empower their attitude more, right? And so that's the downfall of that. The other thing that we covered in the second point was that we don't want them to hate us. So what this generation, actually, the book says that from 1990 to now, what they have done is that they have become their kids' best friends. And so this book says they don't need best friends, they need parents, right? And so this is very damaging. This is actually, out of the whole book, this is the most damaging thing that you can do to your kid, because if you embrace them as your friends, then all the other things are not going to be implemented, right? Consistency, consequences, all those things. If you're just their friend, then why apply anything? I shared a powerful personal story last week about my daughter. And when she moved in my house, she never lived with us. I wanted to kind of loosen the rules a little bit for her, but I didn't, thank God. And today we have an incredible testimony. I know she's not watching, but if she was, she just texted me this morning, told me she loved me just out of the blues, and that is super cool for me. Okay. Anybody have anything that you want to add here before we move on to the fourth point and the second point? You want to add something? Okay, Frank?
I know I had said something about my parents the previous one, and right now that you said that, it brought to mind that my parents were strict, but there was the time where I was a teen already. They couldn't, I could run, and my dad couldn't catch me. So, they were like, okay, what can we do? As long as he comes home. But I remember that it was just that constant cycle where I would get in trouble, and my parents would, I would taunt the police. I was like, hurry up, dude, come on. I'm going to go home. Call my parents so they can come pick me up.
That's good.
I knew that. But this one time I got into something really serious, and I thought I was going home. And then the police officer told me, this is a felony, burglary of habitation is not something you're going to go home from. And I remember trying to be tough, started crying, when I was there. I was like, man, I'm done for. And
my grandpa would have said, "No, chiquito, querías."
Yes, but when I was there and when I finally got, sent to the jail, I remembered what my parents told me. They were like, "Cuando te metas en problemas, no me hables." They're like, "Don't call me because we're not gonna get you out."
Yeah.
And I remember somebody had said that, hey, you get in trouble, don't call me because we're not gonna bail you out. And I appreciate that part about my parents because I didn't call them because I already knew what was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But eventually they found out where I was, and it remained the same. I was like, I'm not gonna get you out, son. We love you, but you're gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate their consistency. They said something, and they followed through with it.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, my mom would not get me out. I did 13 months in the Stevenson Juvenile Center. But back then, my mom was a hairstylist, so they would let her come in and cut my hair, and she would bring me lunch. But she would not get me out. She could sign to get me out, and she wouldn't. And yeah. Anyways, okay. Anybody else? Okay, Sylvia.
This is about my granddaughter, but my daughter, they don't spank my grandkids that much, but she puts them on timeout, or she starts counting, and this time last week when I was over there, she misbehaved, so I go okay, you're gonna get consequences, and then she goes like, "No, Grandma, I don't like consequences." And then I go, "Okay, this grandma's gonna."
How old is she? Sorry.
4 years old.
4, okay.
"I don't like consequences." And then I go, "Okay, Grandma's gonna give you 2 choices. You go and sit down for 5 minutes, and I got a wooden spoon, or Grandma gives you 2 paddles." And then my other grandson looks, "Grandma, you gonna spank her?" And then I go, "Yeah, this grandma spanks." So, and she was like, "I don't want consequences. I don't want consequences." So she finally went and sat down for and and I told my daughter, and then she goes, "Mom, why are you abusing my child with a wooden spoon?" You're traumatizing her. And then I go like, "Mija, it's because she goes like what she behaved after that, like, and I go, you have to be consistent. And it's like you say, I mean, they're a little bit lazy. They work a lot. I see my granddaughter, trying to get her attention, and she's with Facebook, like, and
Yeah.
she's mommy, and like, and I think it's all like laziness, and like, and being like you said, like constantly,
Yeah.
Okay, she did it, and not wait until you're very mad, and then just spank her like the way you're not supposed to
No.
spank her.
They also understand who means business and who doesn't. Yeah, they know who they can play between the mom and the dad, or even the grandparents. Yeah, absolutely. I'm more of the spoiler with the grandkids, but my wife is like you. She's like serious. I used to come home and Michaela, uh, 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 she would say, Grandma doesn't like me. And I was like, I already knew she got, you know, like, what happened, baby? Mean Grandma. And so, okay, anything else? I'm sorry. I'm horrible as a grandparent. Maybe the next I'll do grandparenting skills. I don't know. And I'll sit on that side, and one of y'all can teach me. Okay. So anybody else? Miss Iris, did you raise your hand, Eddie? No. Okay.
I have to confess, everybody's a good grandma. I was a bad grandma because I wanted to pay back to my daughter-in-law. That was a horrible person. So I was equally horrible, and now I'm paying for it. Bottom line.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Well. Ouch. Okay. So. Okay. This is the one that I wanted to spend more time on. This is the fourth of why do parents remove consequences. So. What happens, right? This is what follows, right? When you do the first three, is then that you remove difficult tasks, right? What we end up doing is we end up figuring everything out for them. And I talked a little bit, I got into it a little bit, but wasn't able to finish it. You see this, where kids aren't challenged, and as a result, they grow up feeble. They grow up not being able to compete in a real world. And we're going to read some statistics right now from the book. But it begins with simple things, like they're 6 and you're still tying their shoes. You buy them slip-ons instead of, so you don't have to tie them. Instead of buying them shoes with laces and teaching them how to do it, you're like, I'm just going to buy you slip-ons. I don't have time to tie your shoes. No, they're 10. You shouldn't be tying their shoes anymore. They're 10 years old, It's like, and so you do their homework, right? Because they had a hard time. Mom, you wash the dishes for your kids because they're supposed to do it. It's their chore. But you fold their clothes. You wash the dishes for them. You do what they're supposed to do because they had a hard day. And so you have to teach them that there's going to be hard days in life. And they're going to have to learn how to manage all that by themselves, right? You fight their fights. This is a very huge one here in the valley, and huge. Parents will corner kids that maybe said something bad about their kid, and will corner them somewhere. And hey, what? How come you were talking about my daughter? The kid's like, what the heck's a grown-up, petrified. And that's not right. You should never. There's a way that we do things in our church when there's conflict. And the number one thing that we do, let's say something happened with your kid. What's the first thing you should do? Anybody? If it happened when do they start fighting, the kids? Toddlers? Infants? So, right, toddlers, right? Little fishers, they're already, So what should you do? Something like that happens. Your kid comes and, they say, hey, so-and-so picked on me. What should we do? Gracie? Very good. Thank you. Go ahead. One more time.
Talk to your leader. or
Talk
their
to the leader of that group, right? Of wherever your kid was. You go to that leader, you let them know, hey, this is what happened. And that leader, don't go to the teachers, don't go to the door director, don't go to anybody. Go to that leader, right? And give them time to address it. Don't go to that leader and then go bully the kid, you know? And so there's a way that we do things here. That leader is going to bring it to me, okay, to my attention, and then we will decide how the situation is to be handled. And so that's very, very important. But your kids see that. Your kids see that you're going to fight their fights, and they will get in the habit of fighting all the time because they know you're going to rescue them. Now, I am going to say this about our kids, our teenagers here in this church. They are extremely mature. They're very ahead of their time. A lot of it has to do because of how they're challenged at a very young age, right? So they're here, as in many of our churches in the fellowship, our teenagers are crazy advanced. They run our outreaches. They can run outreaches. They know how to print flyers, run outreaches, load up vans, go set everything up. They don't even need adults there. They run the concerts. They run the media. I mean, look in the back right now. Go ahead. Take a look back there. Look at that. Those are all very, very mature. I mean, that's the benefit of growing up in church, right? Yesterday, they didn't have in the barbecue cook-off, right, competition, they put their own ribs in there. RJ smoked ribs. They were like incredible. But I remember RJ being 3 years old, and Robert would make him chop wood. You know, it's like, he wasn't that young, but and, I remember, man, RJ was always doing something, getting the wood, you know, lighting the fire. I mean, he was little. I remember thinking, wow, he's so small, man, you know, so young. And today, but yesterday, he smoked ribs by himself. You know, he put they were crazy good. I took some home. So, but making them do hard work, right, has paid off. Instead of just letting them sit. I go to some churches that young people don't do anything. The seats are just filled. They don't want to give them responsibilities, teach them anything. I remember talking to one pastor, and I said, hey, why don't you use these teenagers? Nah, they break everything, man. I don't have time to be. I was like, well, you're gonna skip out on a whole generation, right? Because we get older, and it's awesome having young people loading the truck, and I don't have to load it anymore. So research demonstrates that children who are protected from grappling with difficult tasks don't develop what psychologists call mastery experiences. Kids have this well-earned sense of mastery, more optimistic and decisive. They've learned, what does it say? They have learned they are capable of overcoming adversity and achieving goals. Kids who have never tested their abilities grow into emotionally brittle young adults who are more vulnerable to anxiety and depression. There you go. Why should you make your daughter wash the dishes? Why should you make your son cut the grass? Right? Why give them chores? So that they grow up and become responsible adults. According to one U.S. poll, the majority of parents admit their kids have too little responsibility. Compared to their parents' generation or grandparents' generation, we've busied our children with soccer games, piano recitals, but not with real responsibilities such as work, service, or even chores around the house. So we got them busy, just not in responsible things. We got them in all kinds of activities and all kinds of sports and all kinds of things, but they don't have any kind of personal responsibilities at home. And he says this is dangerous. He said, if this is your approach to your kids, our kids will grow up to be irresponsible. They won't have ownership of their life. They'll learn to blame others. They'll grow up to be lazy. They will have a poor work ethic and perhaps low creativity levels. They become dependent, right? They won't be self-sufficient. They'll be unready for independence. And they become emotionally brittle. They will have few coping skills and won't develop resilience. That's just straight from the book. He goes on to say, not only that, but we rob them of ambition. We rob them of ambition, right? Ambition is so crucial for every individual. It's what gives us life, right? It's what gives us identity, importance, self-worth. When we have ambition, right? When we want to conquer something for ourselves, when we want to reach a goal for ourselves, you want to get the next position at work, right? You want to own your own business one day. You want to get, these are things that are going to push you in life to develop and mature. And there's nothing more rewarding than following through with ambitious goals. Listen to this. Recently, after visiting family friends, I learned their son Jacob had won another trophy on his Little League baseball team. When he invited me to see it, I noticed it was in a room full of trophies. I assumed his team had won several championships. I was wrong. Jacob had never won a championship. I soon discovered that every one of his awards was simply for playing on a team, not even participating. These type of kids are called generational trophy kids. We are raising a generation of kids who are used to receiving recognition for participating, not for winning. It started back in the 1980s, he says, when moms and dads were determined to boost their kids' self-esteem and encourage participation more than conquest. I understand that. I am one of those parents, but I believe this works when children are 5, not when they are 10 and 11. It has backfired, and we are now reaping the consequences of this decision. Listen, he said, I know a kid who gave a trophy back to his dad after an award ceremony and said, this doesn't mean anything. I didn't even play. Our kids are not dumb. You make it easy for them, right? You solve every problem, you do everything. They're not dumb. And so what you're doing is you're hurting their ambition. You're hurting their self-esteem. What kids, this is my personal info here. What happens when you don't challenge your kids is inside they believe you don't think much of them. They think you think they can't handle it, so you're going to do it. That's what registering in their mind. And so you're raising a kid with low self-esteem. Listen to this. 3 classes of young students were asked to draw pictures. First group was told, when you are finished, you will get a prize. Second group wasn't told anything about prizes, but each one received a prize anyways. The third group was told nothing about prizes and received no prizes when finished. The result, when given the opportunity to draw a second time with no rewards, the first group immediately turned it down. Very few of the second group were willing to do it, but the third group, every single kid participated. Why? Their motivation wasn't a reward in the first place. The motivation for the first group was reduced to an outward reward. The third group drew pictures for the sheer reward of creating art. You have to be careful. Get in the habit. If you wash the dishes, I'll give you $10. Okay, if you behave, I'll give you a candy. The ambition is removed. Right? You're stunning their growth. And so, anybody have something here? Berkeley?
So a couple weeks ago, Hunter brought me his report card, and he was failing one class, and I told him, hey, you need to work harder and pass. He was like, well, you can't be happy that I'm passing all the other ones. I'm like, you still failed one. You need to work harder. And he was like, yeah, you're not happy that I passed the other ones? I was like, son, when I was growing up in 4-H and FFA, we didn't get participant ribbons or nothing like that. If you won, it's because you worked your butt off to show the animals, and you didn't get like, oh, at least I showed, you know.
Yeah.
And so you had to work hard, and if you didn't win, you worked harder and you tried harder and you worked your animals more and stuff like that. But they don't realize, they don't understand that, you know. And that's what I'm trying to instill into my kids, that at least you pass the other ones doesn't count. You still need to work hard to pass that class also.
Yeah, that's very good. And you need to learn how to use that to your advantage, right? So, you know what? Yeah, I'm glad you passed 5 others, but this tells me that if you really wanted to, you could pass this one because you passed 5 others, right? And so there has to be, George, there has to, it's not just rewarding because, like Berkeley said, he passed 5 others. Well, at least you tried. You know, I'm going to give you your allowance anyways. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's funny that, you know, as Brother Berkeley's saying that I'm the opposite. I'm a little bit extreme sometimes. And there's a balance to everything, right? My kids get like a 98, and I'm like, why'd you get a 98? Why didn't you get 100? Like, you know? And then Leo's like, but Dad, 98 is passing. It's an A. I'm like, yeah, but it could have been an A plus. You know? And I'm like, work harder. Like, you could get you got all these 100s. Why a 98? You know? So then I had to step back sometimes and be like, okay, you know what? He's right. 98 is still good. You know, and he can always work at it. It's not, I don't have to be so extreme where it's like,
Yeah.
you have to have 100 and everything. You have to, you know, be at the top. It's good to strive for the top, but it's okay if it's just a little, you know,
Yeah.
okay, there's room to grow, not be so hard, because then, you know, you could stress out your kids
Yeah.
by trying to be so hard and so just, you know, hatchet because they got a 98 and not 100. You
Yep.
know?
And you have to learn also, if you have multiple kids like George, you have to know your kids, right? Some kids are not going to be as smart as others, as your other kids, or they're not going to be as good at academics, right, as the other kids. And so you have to, like me, I was happy if my kids got a D because I knew that was great. Like, I didn't expect an A out of them because there was no way that they were going to, anyways. You know what I'm saying? So I had to accept. I could have sat there and be frustrated. What? What are you? And it's like, man, you passed. Come on, give me a high five. You know, it's like, no, I'm playing. But you know what I'm saying. It's just, you challenge them, you encourage them, but at the same time, you got one kid that's getting an A and the other one, and well, your sister gets A's. Your sister's brain is a little bit more developed because she's a girl. And so, I don't know, something. But you have to be careful with that. I love when George is going to say something, and I love to see Gemma. Because she's always like, oh my gosh, what is he going to say? That was Nora with me in Sunday school. No, put your hand down. I'm sitting next to you. Wait till I'm gone. And so, anyways, okay.
Pastor, I think that sometimes it's like for me, you know, like if my kids were passing, you know, to me that was good because I was not good in school. I didn't like school, you know, like
Yeah.
I only went to 6th grade and, you know, like, and barely passed. Well, I didn't. So when my kids would come and they would do a 95 and stuff like that, my husband was like, why did you do this? Like this good right here. That means that you were doing this. And then I would go, babe, ya déjalos, like they passed, like or if they
Yeah.
weren't passing to me, it wasn't like, because I was real bad at school. So
Yeah.
when my kids graduated, both my husband they gave him a letter. They gave my husband a letter, and they gave him their diplomas,
Wow.
to my husband.
Wow.
And both of them, without knowing, they go like, "Sorry, mom." I mean, like we wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for dad being so
Yes.
hard on us, like. And I was just like, okay, like, because I wasn't good in school, so
Yeah.
if they were passing a little bit, it was fine with me.
Yeah. No, that's very good. And if I could say this, right? Some kids are not school smart, but they are um, common sense smart. Okay? Regardless of what kid you have, you should make them graduate. Okay? So, and just because exactly what she just said, they're capable and they do appreciate the parent that pushes them. Now, I understand, that your kid might not ever do anything past high school diploma. That's fine, but you should push them. I know with Amanda, it was a challenge for her to graduate. She had made it very clear she didn't want to go to college. Then once she graduated, she decided she wanted to go to college. She did that on her own. I didn't push her past high school graduation, but I did. You are going to graduate in my house. And so that's powerful. You have to understand what's behind that, okay? You think about it, if I grow up in a world where almost everything has been given to me or made easy, I start feeling entitled to it. In fact, I stop trying hard because I know that an adult will ensure that I get it somehow, some way. Right? Why try? An adult's going to figure out how to get somebody to forge a resume, get somebody to lie, get somebody to forge, get me a fake GED. I mean, if you're going to get a fake GED, you might as well get a fake diploma, right? It's like, I don't know why. I heard somebody the other day get a fake GED. I don't get it. But anyways, I'm going to get this job with this fake GED. The problem is you were never taught anything in your life to be responsible. So even if you get this job by faking it, it's not going to last. Okay? Okay, I'm going to do the third point. Anybody want to end? Mark in the top.
I was the youngest child of my family, and so my mom would call me her baby, and she would give me like everything I wanted, or let me do, because we didn't have much money, but she would let me do whatever I wanted. And so when I got saved, I was still a young convert, and I was struggling to stay saved, and the opportunity came for me to go to the guy's house to move in. So I left my house, not in bad terms, but not in the best of terms. And so when I get to the guy's house, they say, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Y'all told me I can come." "Well, not right now. There's no room for you." I was like, "What?"
Wow.
And so I called my mom back, and I was like, "Hey, I need to move back." And so I had never seen this side of her before in my whole life. She's like, "You can't come back." I'm like, "What do you mean? I just left like yesterday." She's like, "Well, your room's gone." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Who did you give it to?" And so
Your room's gone.
she's like, "You can't come back. You need to become a man now." I'm like, "What? I've never heard this from you before." And so there was two things that happened. There was one, I had to figure it out. And second, I was pushed to seek God at that time. And something happened that I was locked in because of her making that stand that she had never done before. And I don't even know why she did it. But something happened to her that day.
That's powerful, man. I love that. That encourages me to do part 2 of this Sunday school. But okay, let's close real quickly with putting in the hard work. A lot of the info that was put in today is really good, and it's going to fall in line with these points, right? Remember in the beginning of this Sunday school, part 3, I said our jobs as parents is to teach, train, and discipline. That's our job while our kids are under our roof. And so part of that is, number one, letting them struggle. Let them struggle. It's important that if they fail, interpret the experience with them. Don't rescue them. Walk them through. Like one thing that I would do if I was in Berkeley's situation with the D, right, past 5 other classes, 1D, is I'll help them through the D. Okay, let's focus on this area. It's the squeaky wheel that gets the attention, right? Let's focus on your D, and then we help them. It's not just, you know what, you figure it out. It's okay to walk them through. It's okay to help them through these things. Alex, did you have your hand up? Go ahead, sir.
Pastor, going back to what the book was saying, everything you read, if you don't challenge your children, these are the consequences. We like about 6 years ago, we started giving our children, I'm going to use Dominic as an example. So we started giving him chores to do. Like some of us would think, oh no, you know, that's a feminine thing to do, like doing his own laundry, washing dishes, cleaning, sweeping, mopping, all this stuff, right? So that was his chores, right? And he was doing it. Well, a family member found out, and they kind of like try to talk us out of putting that on him, right? And we're like, no, it's going to help him out, because we as parents have to be the subject matter experts in our children's lives, right?
Yeah.
We have to set him up for success, right? And so this was our way of setting him up for success. We didn't know where he was going to be at today, but 6 years ago, we started this.
Yeah.
So this family member would say, why are you doing that? He's a child. Let him be a child. On and on, excuse after excuse why we shouldn't give him chores, right? So 6 years later, Dominic has a cousin, right? He's like 1 year older than him. And his cousin, they never challenged him. Now, this kid grew up 6 years later. He didn't get in trouble. He didn't do nothing like that. But also, he didn't do nothing productive either, right? He graduated, and
good.
for 2 years, he did nothing but stay home. He didn't get a job. He didn't go to school, nothing, right? While Dominic, 6 years later, he graduated. He got a job, and he waited for the next semester to open up. He's going to college, right?
Awesome.
Now, I'm not saying that, you know, to be like to boast or anything, but this family member that 6 years ago told us we shouldn't be doing that, well, just recently told us that she was happy that we did that, because she compared Dominic's cousin with Dominic now recently, and how happy she was that Dominic is where he is, and she told us that now she wishes that his cousin's mom would have done the same thing with him.
Yeah, very, very good. And by the way, I believe kids, boys and girls, should do everything in the house. Yeah, my theory changes when we get married, but kids, whatever, have them do whatever. Clean the toilets. I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. Clean it. And so, but very, very good. And that's the key. You know, is you know that, and that's the thing. You know, is parent. We get older, and our kids get older, and we realize whether we raised them properly or not. Number 2 is tell them stories about your own struggles and failures. My kids love to hear about my mistakes, and the way that, you know, my wife will talk to my kids sometimes. You know, hey, your dad was horrible with money back then when we first got married, or he was, you know, she only uses me though, not her. Not herself. No. And so share those things with them. Walk them through. And look, I did that one time. Let me tell you how I did it, right? This is what I did. This is how I got out of it. It's so important that you walk them through their fumbles and failures. 3 is help them put their finger on something they really want to achieve. right? Help them to have goals, ambitions, and even if they change them, you know, in an environment like ours, almost every boy wants to be a pastor one day, a missionary, and every girl wants to be a pastor's wife. And then they get older. They're 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and that changes sometimes. It doesn't mean, oh, I don't want to be a pastor's wife now, and so I'm just going to not do nothing with my life. No, make sure that if they're under your roof, that there is goals involved, right? Ambitions, things that you're teaching them to reach towards, because when they accomplish them, they're going to feel so good about themselves. Establish rewards that require hard work and progress and completing, right? Don't just, well, you know, like Berkeley said, well, you almost passed all of them, I'm going to give you the reward, right? Or, I know you really wanted to cut the grass like I told you to, son, so here, I'm going to give you the $20 anyways because you really wanted to. No, if you cut the grass, you get an ice cream, right? Whatever. And so make sure that rewards that you are giving them also require hard work and progress in their life. Communicate your love and your belief in them regardless what happens. Don't get in the habit of loving your kids only when they're doing good. You have to love them in their failures. You have to love them when they're not meeting up to your standards. You have to communicate that to them, because if they grow up feeling like they let you down, then it robs them of ever trying to please somebody, if you would, in life, right? And so you have to be willing to be happy for them, or not communicate that the only time I love you, the only time I'm going to be around you is when you're doing well. Okay, that one's a big one. I hope that one's registering there, right? Because some of us, the only time we talk to our kids is when we're getting after them. And as long as they're doing well, we leave them alone. We don't spend time with them, right? But the moment they start, then that's when we give them attention. That's registering. You're communicating something to them. And so, lastly, stop making excuses for them. When they make a mistake, help them to own it. Don't teach them to blame others and make excuses. They must eventually learn that life is not fair. Ask my kids how many times I've used that word in my house. Life is not fair. Get used to it now. Or life is hard is one of my favorite sayings. Right? This wasn't supposed to happen, Dad, and now I'm overwhelmed. Yep. Can't wait to see how God's going to help you out of this one. Bye. You know, it's like it's hard. Life's hard. Yes, it is. You have to also learn to distinguish certain qualities in your kids. Some of your kids have leadership qualities. Some don't. Doesn't mean one kid's better than the other. But you have to learn to challenge those leadership things that you see in their life. So what I've noticed in most leaders is, I'm closing, in kids that I know, I do that even here in the church with our young teenagers, is I see sometimes that those that are going to be entrusted with much later have to go through much today. They have to learn how to balance those things. They have to learn the pressures and how to get a hold of God for themselves. And then you see that later they're going to be in charge of people. They're going to be in charge of money. They're going to be in charge of something, because God's developing them, allowing them to go through that while they're young, because he has big things for them later. Okay, it's very, very important. And so one of my favorite stories I've ever heard is from Pastor Artie Aragon, which we're having him for revival next year. But he told a story that his daughter, Andrea, I think it was Andrea, he's always been firm and spoke into his kids and all this. And the day came when she, was on her own, and she sent Pastor Artie a letter. And she thanked him for all the talks, all the investments, all the hard things that he had to, apply to her life. And she said that Pastor Artie, her father, to her was, he said, "You are my gate arm in life." Remember when he shared that? He said his daughter, when the trains are about to come, that gate arm comes down, right? And it warns the person and it stops them, right? You have to stop your kid. Hey, there's a train coming. You're about to wreck your life. You're under my roof? No. And he said that she said, "You are my gate arm, and I love you for that. I thank you that you didn't let me do all the crazy things that I wanted to do in life." Okay, we are the gate arms of our kids. We have a responsibility to train them, teach them, and discipline them. Okay, that's all I have. Let's get ready for service.